Hey, everybody, welcome in. It's a Tuesday edition of On Texas Football, the Tuesday live stream, Longhorn live stream, and see the Christmas tree in the background. On Sunday, it'll be Christmas Eve. Tonight is recruiting eve, right? It's we'll open the presents tomorrow starting at 7 a.m., 6 a.m. Eastern, and so we'll do a Christmas Eve, recruiting eve edition of the live stream. And there's a lot to talk about. Look at the crew we have right here: C.J. Vogel, Rod Babers, Bobby Burton. And guys, we've got a lot to talk about. It is the calm before the storm. Longhorns have been storming a little bit here over the last, 42, 78 hours, but a lot more to come. And Bobby, what's the latest on what you're hearing as we're, pushing up on, again, recruiting eve, signing day eve? It's a big time right now in Longhorn land and all over college football.
Yeah, my eyes are glazed, and it's not even Christmas yet. You know what I mean? It's like I've been hit with eggnog instead of drinking any. I feel like Steve Sarkisian ran me over on Monday, and he ran over the rest of college football with 3 commitments from 3 different categories: a high school player that's a 5-star in some categories, a 3-year starter from the portal at nickel, and then a 2025 prospect at tight end. And then today he follows it up with what I think is going to end up being a 5-star defensive tackle out of O'Galley, Florida. The latest right now, just because I've got to get prepared for tomorrow. I'm stepping off this show here tonight a little bit to get ready for tomorrow. We got a big day on Texas football. But what I've got right now is this. I talked with Trey Moore's agent earlier today, about an hour and a half ago. Trey Moore, the rush edge prospect out of UTSA, had yet to make a decision. He was clearly debating between Texas and Alabama. Those are the 2 schools. I talked to the agent. Nick Saban on Saturday morning drove Trey Moore in Nick Saban's Ferrari, back to the Alabama coach's office. Nick said according to the agent, Nick said he usually only drives the Ferrari on Wednesdays, but he made an exception for Trey Moore this past weekend. But y'all get the point. He's going through the whole process right now. Yeah. And I think it's fair. I mean, these guys are being recruited heavily. Not only does Texas want him, not only does Alabama want him. He has to make a decision that's for him. It was thought that decision might come today. Now they don't know for sure when it's going to come. So that's the update on Trey Moore. He might decide tonight. He might decide tomorrow. He might decide before Christmas. They're still trying to figure that out. Now, as far as Evan Stewart, the young man out of Texas A&M that put his name in the portal officially today, or actually, I guess he put it in 48 hours ago. It gets listed today. I am told by sources inside the building that Texas is going to talk, perhaps, not sure where it will go. Remember, they talked a little with Walter Nolan and then decided not to pursue. So this isn't a no. This isn't a yes, absolutely. When Matthew Golden went in the portal, Texas was all over it. When Andrew McCougar went in the portal, Texas was all over it. So that everybody is taking a wait and see attitude is the best way to put it. And that's what I'm told Texas is going to do. They're going to explore the option. If Evan Stewart wants to talk, they're going to talk, et cetera. But we'll see how it goes from there. The last piece is Ty Anthony Smith. I don't know that I have anything new other than what CJ has reported and other people have reported. He's expected to announce a decision tomorrow night around 6:15. I think Ty Anthony put that up last night or earlier today on his own Twitter account. He is a linebacker out of Jasper, Texas, currently committed to Texas A&M.
Hey, Bobby, before you go get prepped for tomorrow, and you can let everybody know what's coming tomorrow on Texas Football. You should just do that. What's coming tomorrow? Yeah. I mean, it's all day, right?
Yeah, absolutely. From 7 to 11 tomorrow, we're doing a live stream. Then we're picking back up at noon and going till about 5. And then we're going to pick back up and go until Ty Anthony Smith makes a decision from about 6 o'clock on. We'll be live all day. We've got a couple of pre-recorded shows. Rod Babers and I are going to do the first state of the program that we've done together. Hopefully you guys will enjoy that as well. And other than that, I'm doing radio with you and Rod at 6:30 in the morning, Aaron. I'm excited about getting on and talking a little football on the air at the Horn too. So it should be fun. I think the Longhorns right now, guys, in my opinion, just it is so incredible what is going on right now behind the scenes at Texas. It's 3 recruiting classes in a row. I mean, just great stuff. Playing on New Year's Day again against Washington in the Sugar Bowl. This is what it's all about. So happy to be a part of it. Glad that all the fans get to be a part of it too, man.
Yeah. All right, man. Hey, we'll see you tomorrow. You got a lot of work to do, so get some rest, and we'll see you tomorrow. Hey,
all right, take care, guys.
Thanks, Bobby. Thanks, Bobby. CJ and Rod, pick up that point on, and we'll get back into the Trey Moore situation. But CJ, Rod, your thoughts on Evan Stewart? I mean, that's a buzz right now. But Rod and CJ, it feels like there's talent's one thing, but culture greater than talent. You know what I mean? And fit greater than talent. We're not going to mess up. They've worked, diligently and real determined to build this culture around the right kind of guys and the right kind of people. I'm not saying Evan Stewart's not. I'm just saying if there was some issues in the original recruitment or, whatever the situation is, we're not, talent's not going to usurp what they've built in that locker room right now, culture-wise. You guys pick it up from there.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I mean, I think what has been kind of the resounding theme of Texas football over the last couple of years has been culture. The work that guys like Jordan Whittington, Roshan Johnson, Bijan Robinson, the work that they did to establish what it meant to be a Texas football player has been resounding. And we've seen, the effects of that this year on the football field. We've seen how far the buy-in can take a football team. And, when you combine that with talent, a lot of good things happen. Obviously, Evan Stewart is a whole lot of talent. We've seen the film. We've seen the highlights. We've seen what he can do on a 7-on-7 field, and as well as what he was able to do in 2 years at Texas A&M. The talent is there. What is next in the process of, the re-recruitment of Evan Stewart is, does he fit what Texas currently has right now? And I think that is going to be what is discussed with Sarkisian and his staff when they do talk. Because like Bobby said, it's tough to look at a talent like Evan Stewart or Walter Nolan and not be intrigued. And if you do reach out and you do see a fit, you would be a fool to not pursue. But I do think that is what that initial contact will be. It is interesting to see, how long, a decision goes for Evan Stewart. I'm sure he's going to be courted by just about everybody in the country that needs a receiver. Texas has history. I'm interested to see just how, quickly things progress there.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm with you. I think they are. I know Texas wants to be really selective with who they get in the transfer portal. Sark is really in tune with the culture of this team in the locker room. I think he's really sensitive to it. He knows how fragile it is. I don't think he wants to disrupt that just by bringing in, the most talent. That great line from that movie Miracle, Kurt Russell's character, the coach, he's sitting there looking over the roster for the national team, for the Team US, and they ask him like, hey man, what, you don't even have the best players on this roster, coach. You're missing all the best guys. He said, I'm not looking for the best guys. I'm looking for the right guys. I do think there's a certain element of that with Sark in the transfer. Now you want the best guys, Sark getting the best talent available. But I do think he wants to filter that through, essentially compatibility. All right. Do these guys fit with the personality of our locker room, what we want to do? Do they have the same goals and aspirations, right, as us as a program? I think that matters to Sark because I think now he has seen the impact of what a positive culture can do. It can straight up just win you games. That's what it did this year. We saw straight up culture wins by Texas, whether that be by players stepping up when other players had injuries and being able to help them win at the quarterback position, at the running back position, or that be the way Texas was closing games, able to win games because of their football character. I don't think he wants to mess with that. So if he brings in some other guys, I think they want to vet them thoroughly. Personality-wise, their football personality, their football character to make sure they fit. I hope it is Evan Stewart. Because, yeah, man, with talent like that, I wouldn't be as concerned about what they're losing in the wide receiver room because I don't know if any room is losing as much as they are. If you consider the D-line, maybe interior D-line, but nobody's losing as much as the wide receiver room right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and to y'all's point, Sark's been very intentional about building the culture, right? And if you bring in someone who doesn't fit the culture, it sends a message to everyone that Sark's big on being genuine, right? Let's be genuine about this. It's every day. It's all the time. You bring it, because it's we, not me, right? That's always been his mantra. We's bigger than me. You bring in someone that maybe they know that maybe is not on board with that. And again, I'm not casting anything about Evan Stewart because I don't know the young guy, but that is important because one pebble can ruffle everything because it sends a message that, oh, wait, you keep saying it's about we, and then you bring in someone it's more about me. That's a big deal. And so you have to be very selective. I like the word you used, Rod, when you're doing this. And that's where, Andrew Makuba has committed. Matthew Golden immediately. And they had history with them, CJ. You can speak to that. They had recruited both of those players on the trail and, both chose a different path, which is fine. But, whatever the Evan Stewart recruitment was, that's got to be taken into consideration because, again, Sark has been very, very, deliberate about how he's done this, and the whole coaching staff has.
Yeah, to that point, real quick, you saw kind of how, a guy or a couple guys that you bring in that don't gel right away, things don't go well in the locker room as a result. We saw it in year one. A couple Alabama players that Sarkisian and his staff brought over just didn't gel, and the distraction it creates elsewhere drips onto the field, Rod, as I'm sure you're aware of seeing it firsthand. I mean, it's evident at times. And so with guys that they have, a lot of experience with, a lot of communications in the past with, it makes things easier in that sense. And obviously connections run deep. I mean, Evan Stewart and Jonte Cook, it's no secret that the two of them are very close friends. Yep. They were former 7-on-7 teammates. They train together seemingly every weekend in the offseason. There are connections there. If it works out, I mean, this has been the guy Texas fans have been clamoring for basically since he stepped on campus at Texas A&M when it felt like an eventual portal was imminent.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and Rod, that Sark has been pretty clear about, and the staff about, they're going to treat you like an adult, right? They're going to treat you like a grown person. It's a business. I mean, it's never been more than a business than it is right now. You're going to come get a great education. You're going to come be on a team that's going to play for championships. But you got to be grown up. You got to be adult about this. And that's an important side of this. And again, I think it's a great point by CJ that he's got friends on this team, which
yes, it does.
It doesn't mean it can't happen. It's one of those, but you got to vet it. You got to make sure it's right because it can disrupt what you're talking about. Because everything you're saying, if you bring in the wrong type of guy, all of a sudden, because it's not an elite player, it's an elite team that you're trying to build. CJ, Rod, what are other big conversations as we head into 7:25 on a Tuesday night before signing day? What are the other big stories that are percolating in the spheres? CJ, you're as close to it as anybody. What are the big things you're hearing as far as what could happen between now and tomorrow morning?
Yeah, Bobby mentioned it earlier, when he was on for a little bit. Ty Anthony Smith, the linebacker out of Jasper, currently committed to Texas A&M. He's really the number one guy that a lot of attention should be focused on in that 2024 class. His decision will come around 6:15, 6:30 tomorrow via live stream that he announced earlier this afternoon. Again, the word that I got last week, do not let him get to campus if you're Texas A&M. Well, guess what? He spent the whole weekend in Austin. And that's exactly, the continual theme that I've been hearing since he arrived on campus and everything since. Texas did a great job on the visit. They answered questions. They presented a package, just what he wanted to hear. Seeing the linebacker development over the last couple of years is certainly something that a lot of guys are starting to realize now. It's no longer a promise. You're seeing the actual thing on the field right now with Jalen Ford. Obviously, DeMarvion overshown last year as well. So encouraging, and I do expect Texas to be receiving some good news tomorrow night.
Oh, really? Well, there you go. And that's another linebacker, Rod. We've talked about that on the morning show on the Horn. They're rebuilding the secondary right now with three players that maybe don't fit what their plan is in the portal, and then 5 defensive backs have committed through high school. And then Andrew Makuba is through the portal. So they're rebuilding the defensive backfield as we speak. Linebacker, they added 4 or 5 really top-end linebackers last year in the class, including Anthony Hill Jr. and Samaje Burrell and Darian Gillette, Lafona Lafau. Another one like that, Ty Anthony Smith from Jasper, hard-hitting linebacker. Well, you're starting to build the kind of defense PK and that staff have been thinking about since they got here.
Yeah, I mean, I think the concern is on defense, right? You're losing what I like to call the central nervous system of your defense, right? The communication center, basically where all your football IQ is. That includes the interior D-line, but also includes those off-ball linebackers. I'll throw the nickel in there too, and I throw the safeties in there. You're losing a lot of that. And those are a lot of veteran experience in that back seven with Jalen Ford and the safeties. So I do think a lot of these guys who are coming in either to play those positions in that central nervous system, the safeties they're bringing in, the nickels they're bringing in, anyone projected to be that off-ball linebacker, those guys are going to get a chance to play right away because it is imperative. It's crucial that you are strong and secure in the central nervous system of your defense, right? And that's where all the communication that takes place. That's where all the audibles are. That's where the checks are. Those guys basically are the ones who are going to be matching wits with the opposing quarterbacks. They're the ones who are going to be moving things around. Your air traffic controllers on the defensive side of the ball. You're going to lose a lot of that. Now, you still got young Derek Williams thrown in there. Taft Daddy's great. He's assignment sound. And Anthony Hill's your movable chess piece, kind of like your Micah Parsons of the defense. So I would expect him to always be as simply at the off-ball linebacker. Put him on the edge sometimes. Sometimes you can move that guy around, blitz him in the interior gaps. So I think you can tell right now they're being very, very deliberate about how they're building the defense, prioritizing certain traits. But I think no matter what kind of defense you're building, central nervous system is key. Interior D-line, off-ball linebacker, nickel, and your safeties. That is key. That's what the linebackers, that's what the quarterbacks are reading most of the time. When they're reading defenses, they're usually reading those linebackers, usually reading those safeties. That is the chess match within the game happening between that central nervous system and usually the quarterback, especially in your RPO game. That's a lot of it. And those guys are the ones who need to be instinctual and they need to be processing things really quickly. Talking about high football IQ. So that's I think that's the concern why these young guys coming in at those positions, they're going to play right away. They're going to have to because they need some guys to fill that void.
Good stuff right there, Rod Babers. And speak to that, CJ, of what they're doing and how they're building this team defensively. The offense, they got to replace a lot of pass catches, but the offensive line, quarterback, running back room is stocked. You feel like Sark will find pieces to move the football and score points in the future. But the defense is kind of growing and evolving. I feel like this staff, Rod and I've talked about it a lot on our morning show, that they kind of had to prove to the state of Texas that they could develop players and because that's been a problem at Texas for the last decade. We know that, but all of a sudden guys are, evolving from, fringe draft pick like Devondre Sweat to first round draft pick like Devondre Sweat, Coburn and Ojimo. That's resonating on the recruiting trail with these guys that, hey, I can go play at Texas, get in the NIL situation, play in a great city for championships in the SEC, but I can also get developed for Sundays. And that's really changed the culture. Speak to what you're seeing them build on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to Rod's point, the communication, the head of the snake, everything that makes a defense work is about communication, being in sync with one another, making sure that everybody has the same assignment. They understand what is at stake when a shift across the motion or motion across the formation happens. What is the next step? And with that, there's no substitute for experience, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And I think dating back to, really Big 12 media days this August, the number one thing we continue to hear about Jalen Catalon is just how vocal he was. And I think that comes with, having years of experience. And while, Catalon didn't necessarily live up to what many Texas fans were hoping for, unfortunately due to injury, I think Texas is understanding that value of having an experienced guy replace another experienced guy. And more times than not, you get that through the natural progression of developing it from the high school ranks to a freshman to a sophomore. But when you don't have that luxury, and you can find a guy like Andrew Makuba to step in right away with 3 years of experience under an All-American, title under his name, that goes a long way and it helps expedite the process that otherwise would take probably an entire spring to really get on the same page with a whole, bunch or batch of new faces working together for the first time. So I think that's something that is very encouraging. And it's been a trend when Texas needs a piece to be filled immediately. Sarkisian, again, we talked about the targeted attack on the portal. If there's a piece that's needing to be plugged, they're going to go find a guy with a lot of experience and a lot of talent that fits the culture. And we've seen it time and time again. And Makuba's just the next chapter in that book, if you will.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. Yep. Coverage in the back end, disruptors in the front end, and then linebackers that can range and run. And they've got a lot of those guys. It'll be really interesting to see who evolves as that filler for Jalen Ford, big picture, because Jalen's been such a pivotal piece. But they've got guys who you feel can fit that role. And it does feel like they're building that defense out. All right, so Anthony Smith. Anything on Dominic McKinley, CJ? I mean, that's the A&M commitment as well, another defensive tackle. When we get going here in a minute, I'm going to talk about the commitments for the 2025 class that are already coming in. But what else could be tomorrow that is of interest to Longhorn fans?
Yeah, obviously, recruiting has taken a fun turn over the last 48 hours. And, it's, in a position to get even more fun for a lot of Texas fans here. Obviously, Dominic McKinley is the big 5-star name that a lot of uncertainty is kind of surrounding at the moment. Word that I've got is, a signing to Texas A&M tomorrow is unlikely. That's not to say that it might not happen in the February signing day, but tomorrow it is very unlikely that a signing to Texas A&M occurs. I know that Dominic McKinley is also in touch with LSU. Texas is making a push. The defensive line is going to add another piece one way or another, and we've talked about it here. Alex Foster was just on campus this weekend for an official visit. Dominic McKinley is now entering the fold once again, and De'Alen Evans is kind of back into touch with Texas again, obviously having connected with Aaron Hampton out in East Texas. What does that mean? It means that Texas will be adding another guy. I do expect Texas to make a strong push here. I think it's a little premature to say that one way or another he will end up at a school, whether it be tomorrow or a week from now. But Texas is going to be very much involved moving forward, and it's going to be tough for A&M to hold on to this signature, in the second signing day.
Wow. Yeah, into February. Because, again, this is the early sign period. It was supposed to be the smaller period. Now it's become the bulk, and but still have early February for guys who don't sign, which will be really interesting. Rod, as for the roster construction, we talked about Andrew Makuba. You can speak to him more, but also the addition of Matthew Golden over the weekend. That's a big deal for Texas, who's losing a lot of pass catchers. They're losing Keelan Robinson, who's an ace, return man. It feels like Trey Moore is pending, but it feels like so far they've gotten their two most important portal targets, right? I mean, I know you like Juice Wells a lot, but it feels like Matthew Golden and Andrew Makuba fill immediate needs where they need them, kind of like A.D. Mitchell did last year, kind of like Ryan Sanborn at punter, like really important positions that they can fill that they can just not worry about moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, just like CJ said, right, very targeted in terms of the acquisitions in the portal. When Texas has an urgent need, they believe they can supplement through the portal. Sark, I don't think, wants to get into the habit of just adding talent via the portal. He still wants to be a homegrown team. I say homegrown, I mean organically through mostly old school recruiting. But I do think, you said, you would be irresponsible as a coach when you look at urgent need not to go straight to the portal to stabilize roster construction. That's what CJ's talking about, right? Things that could take you 3-4 years, you can come in and expedite that development and also stabilize positions. You're going to do that in the secondary right now with Andrew Makuba, because you're going to have a lot of young guys. The upside is tremendous when you have guys like Andrew, with these young guys like Malik Muhammad, and you're going to have, Terrence Brooks back there and Derek Williams and Phil Samee coming in, really high upside, but they're inexperienced, so there will be growing pains. You bring a guy in like Andrew Makuba, a 3-year starter, I mean, he can stabilize, that secondary a little bit for you. And as CJ mentioned, older guys, they talk a lot. All right. They communicate a lot. They ask a lot of questions. Young guys won't. And I think that also helps. Young guy, he talked about Jalen Catalan coming in, how chatty he was. A confident defense is a defense that's communicating a lot, right? They talk a lot. That's a good defense. I remember when his defense was a bad defense in 2021 because they didn't talk. They were silent on the field. Go back and look at them. Go back and look at them now. Go back and look at how much they're talking, communicating with each other. It ain't perfect just yet, but it's getting a whole lot better. That does come with experience. But you go look at the targeted positions. Andrew Makuba, who can play nickel, can also play safety for you if you need it. Now, I think he's going to come in and be the nickel, but Dabo Sweeney said he can play safety. He can play strong and free. He can play corner for you. You bring a guy that can manufacture depth at any position. Let's just say in the secondary, you really like Jalen Gilbo and Austin Jordan and what they're doing. Hey, then maybe you could potentially look at Makuba at safety. That's a luxury you would have. But if not, because I don't think they necessarily project that Jalen Gilbo and Austin Jordan are going to be high-level nickel players just yet, you bring in Makuba. tuba, stabilize it, and then you work on developing those young guys. Wide receiver, like I said, I don't know if you're losing more at any position than you're losing at wide receiver in terms of the targets and the explosive, dynamic talent. Defensive tackle may be close, but I think at wide receiver, that circle of trust for Sark, man, it means a lot to him. He does not break it. He does not go outside of a heavy rotation of wide receivers. It's really tight. It's going to be 3 or 4 guys. I think Jonte Cook is already considered to be one of those guys. And then we don't know after that. We're not sure if it's going to be, a young DeAndre Moore that steps up in that role. We're not sure if one of the young guys coming in can step up. Matthew Golden, I think, is right now projected easily to crack the circle of trust of wide receivers for Sark because the guy's a veteran that's done that. Sark's familiar with his game. He's got some of the athletic traits that Sark likes: dynamic, explosive, twitchy athleticism in space, dynamic returner. So I think I'm projecting Matthew Golden to be in the top 3 to 4 wide receiver rotation. And those are guys you need right away. That's the beauty of the portal, right? The portal, give it and it take it away. You can look at Oklahoma, right? They lost a lot of guys on the offensive line through the portal. You can lose a ton of talent through the portal. And if you do that and you panic about it, then that's on you as a coach. But when you lose a lot of guys, it's also an opportunity to upgrade. I mean, look what Deion Sanders has done on the offensive line just through the portal alone. Brought in 4 different offensive linemen first 72 hours of the portal. It give it, then it take it away. Whether it's going to be a benefit for you or whether it's going to be a disadvantage for you, that depends on your attitude towards it as a coach.
Yeah.
Rod, real quick, if you don't mind, Aaron, just the conversation about Jonte Cook and Matthew Golden. I know they have similar builds. They have similar play styles. Is there a way that you see both on the field at a time? Like, how do you view that? Obviously, they're great playmakers. You'd like to have them on the time. Is it a guarantee? Is it up in the air? How do you see that this far out?
I think he's going to move Jonte around a lot situationally to find a matchup advantage. He'll hunt matchups with that guy. He'll become his version of Xavier Worthy. And that's what he did with X-Man. X-Man, he played in the slot, played outside. Sometimes they put him in number 3 in trips. I think he'll move him around a lot. With Matthew Golden, I think you could put him in the slot. I think that's what I ideally project him to be. But hell, I remember U of H used him on the outside. I think he ran that post route, called a touchdown. He was on the outside as a receiver. Ideally, Sark likes his wide receivers to be interchangeable. He wants to be able to move all those guys around. He wants position flexibility with his wide receivers, fluidity with his wide receivers. So I don't really worry about this guy's an outside receiver, this guy's a slot receiver in Sark's offense. Now, A.D. Mitchell, most of the time was that outside receiver. I think that's what he fits. Some of the guys are actually bringing in this recruiting class. Parker Livingston kind of fits that mold too. I think with Jonte Cook and with Matthew Golden, I could see him on the field at the same time. I think, yes, they have similar traits within their skill set, but I think Sark can find a way individually to kind of separate them and use them in different ways because they are really different. I mean, in the open field, Matthew Golden is dangerous. And I don't think his route running ability is as far along and developed, as mature as a guy like Jonte Cook, even though Jonte Cook's a younger wide receiver. I think he's a better route runner than Matthew Golden. But I think Matthew Golden in the open field with the ball in his hands is probably he's more dynamic than a guy like Jonte Cook, but they all kind of provide different assets they bring to the table.
Yeah, great stuff.
Yeah, we talked about that, Rod, that and I want to ask a question on this, but Matthew Golden could fill the role of, as you said, put him where you need, but also that Keelan Robinson role that Keelan has filled, and out of the backfield, wherever you need him, get him in space. I mean, those space players are huge. DeAndre Moore is a guy that they've got to figure out what they're going to do, and then there's Trey Moore or Ryan Wingo, I should say. Ryan Wingo is one that's really interesting. That he's a 5-star kid from St. Louis, and I want your thoughts on this, CJ. You've seen a lot of him. He's one of the big recruits that's going to come in tomorrow. One of the 4 5-stars, if you include Xavier Phil-Sami as a 5-star. But one of the 5-stars at receiver. But he's coming in to be able to practice a bowl practice, Rod. I know that's important. He's going to be here after Christmas to work with the team.
Yeah.
He's about expediting the process. Give me your thoughts, CJ, on Ryan Wingo and what he can be for this team. Obviously, A.D. Mitchell's going to move on. You're replacing catch. You're looking for a high point receiver kind of outside guy. Could that be Ryan Wingo big picture when we get to next fall?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, big body, can fly and can high point, and the athleticism's off the chart. Everything about a 5-star 6'2", 6'3" receiver is what you want in Ryan Wingo, and he has it. The question mark is how far along in the fine-tuned aspect of being a receiver is he? And Rod, we talked about it with Jonte Cook, and Xavier Worthy was in this conversation as well. Obviously, he was thrown into the fire very quickly, so we had to learn on the fly. But the adjustment of running good routes is, a skill, and it's a skill that very few have the minute they step foot on campus. And, Chris Jackson has done a tremendous job getting this wide receiver room into a higher level production that we've seen, under Sarkisian at Texas. I expect that to happen again with this new batch of guys. But we saw it last year, and we mentioned it earlier. There's a fine circle here that doesn't expand very much in terms of who's getting the routes, who's getting the volume share, who's stepping on the field in games that matter. We don't see that rotation all that often. And I think right now to pencil Ryan Wingo in as a day one starter is a little premature. Obviously, he could come in and he could light the world on fire in the spring. But again, as a true freshman wide receiver going against this Texas, what we expect to be a very good Texas secondary, it's going to be very difficult, in my opinion, for him to really kind of draw that, separation from the bunch if you aren't fine-tuned in your route tree and being able to create separation. So that will be something that we'll have to monitor in the spring. But right now, I think, a rotational guy is going to be kind of, what I expect for Ryan Wingo in year one as a Texas Longhorn.
Yeah, he is. I agree with CJ there about that's bring it up because I have my notes here about Ryan Wingo, and I literally put right here now starting to study the nuances of the wide receiver position. Yeah, because he is not a refined route runner. He's just a freakish beast of an athlete out there. They got usually when he gets the ball in his hands, he can make you miss in a phone booth. He really is kind of one of those guys. He's great at making contested catches, which is also kind of a freakish athletic trait of his. He accelerates out of breaks like a mofo, so he can separate. So you can teach him how to run routes with precision. And he's dangerous with the ball in his hands. Got elite body control and balance. So I can see a guy at the high school level not learning the nuances, sight adjustments of the wide receiver position, how to run routes, not only acceleration, but the deceleration of route, how to set up DBs, get them to turn their hips, all these little slow things. He doesn't know that yet, but that's even scarier because he's 5-star elite receiver right now with just raw materials. When he does learn some of those little cheat codes, some of those little tricks of the traded wide receiver, look out. His rate of development will accelerate. It will be expedited. The guy like you brought up Xavier Worthy. Xavier Worthy came in with a lot of that. He came in way ahead of schedule in terms of the maturity at wide receiver. Yeah. Maybe Ryan Wingo can be that. From what I hear, he just started working with like a wide receiver coach in the offseason to learn some of those details about route running, about separation, things of that nature. And I always say that, listen, the art of route running, don't complicate it. The art of route running is simple, creating separation. That's it. Because there are some bad route runners in the NFL that still create separation, and they don't necessarily run precision route. DeAndre Hopkins is famous for it. DeAndre Hopkins, he don't necessarily run a route. Go watch him. There's no hard angles in there. He's just kind of running around and getting open, trying to create separation. Some guys do it differently. I think with a guy like Ryan Wingo, his freakish athleticism and his freakish explosivity, I should say, I think when he learns just a little tricks of the trade, I think you'll see him start to see the field a little bit more. And CJ's right. We don't know if that's going to be early. We just don't know if that's going to be middle of the season or later on in the season, but it's only a matter of time for that kid.
It's funny that, last year we talked about this in relation to the running back room, right? You're losing Bijan and Roschon. Who's going to step up? And the running back room's been pretty damn good this year. And it feels like next year with CJ Baxter and Jonathan Brooks getting healthy, Jaden Blue, this year it's going to be the wide receiver room and how that evolves around Quinn Ewers, who's likely to be back, and the offensive line should be even a year more experienced, which is interesting based on, we talked about the defensive build that goes. All right, so look at that, Mike. Thanks, appreciate that super chat. I've seen the Texas opted not to have the incoming freshman at bowl practice. that some recruits are opening up lines of communication. Any reason to worry? CJ, go ahead.
No, I mean, getting freshmen on for bowl practices is great in theory, but to be realistic, there's not a whole lot that they're going to be doing. They're going to understand a little bit of how a weekend practice goes. They're going to get really just the idea of what a game week is like. But there's no expectation for them to contribute, and there's no expectation that really they should be doing anything more than setting up themselves to be early enrollees January 14th. Most of these kids, again, are preparing for an Under Armour All-American All-American game, or the Army All-American game down in San Antonio. It's one last opportunity, and having spoken with a number of these kids that are early enrollees, there's not really a desire. Again, it sounds great in theory, but this is your last winter break, if you will, to be a high school kid. Yeah. It's your last chance to really enjoy that moment before your college days begin. So it's not anything to worry about. I'm not sure it's one of those things to expect year in and year out. Should Texas be in this conversation for a New Year's Six Bowl, to really expect these kids to walk in right away and be in the midst of a Texas practice? I'm not sure that's what you truly want at the as an early enrollee, but that's just where I stand currently on that topic.
Rod? Well, I mean, I don't know if that's true or not. I have not seen that, because we've heard that Ryan Wingo and some of these other guys are going to get to, we talked to Parker Livingstone last Tuesday, and he's planning to be there at bowl practice. There's also the idea of upsetting just the chemistry of the team and, who's this guy, but I just think it's a healthy thing if they could have him out there. I've not seen that. Maybe they're not going to go to New Orleans or whatever as far as that goes. But either way, we'll follow that. Bobby and CJ, why even in friends with Quinn and Jonte, why is Evan Stewart not being mentioned as a portal target for Texas? Alabama, the front runner. Why would Alabama want him with a character issue? Fair question from Juan. Thanks for the super chat, Juan. Y'all, again, we don't know why Texas isn't involved in Evan Stewart. That's if they are or not. But what's your feel on Evan Stewart, CJ? We started the live stream with that. Pick it back up, because I know a lot of people have joined as we've already started.
Yeah, Bobby mentioned at the beginning of the stream, Texas will talk with Evan Stewart. There will be cordial, conversations just to kind of feel each other out. The two sides have a lot of history with one another. Obviously, Texas finished second in that recruitment behind Texas A&M. Steve Sarkisian has, a spot open in his receiving room. If you want to look at it that way, you're losing a lot of production, a lot of volume, a lot of experience. There will be some, openings for guys to step in. Evan Stewart, obviously, on paper fits that mold, but that conversation and just seeing just how the two sides, feel about one another is going to be very key. And whether or not he's a great culture fit, whether or not he sees what Texas has built with its program in the last 2 years since he was a high school recruit, that's going to be answered here in the next week. Because again, he will be courted by just about everybody that needs a receiver in this portal. He's that talented. And the comment about Alabama, I think it's one thing, Nick Saban can take he can take that risk on a guy that he might not know will be a good fit in his portal or in his program, because he's proven for the last 15 years, he has no issue sending you to the curb. He has no issue finding that next guy, because that next guy is going to be pretty darn talented as well. For Steve Sarkisian, as you're just now getting to that point of having sustained success, and really it's just been a season, you want to, continue to tiptoe through that line and that barrier of saying, we need our culture to be A1. We can't have bad apples right now. And so it's going to be a conversation of, do you fit what we see and what we need right now with Evan Stewart? And, if it is, that it's a perfect fit on paper.
Rod B, any thoughts on that? We already went through it, but it's for our new audience that has joined. It's no one has more. I shouldn't say no one, but there aren't a lot of programs out there that have more intel on Evan Stewart. As CJ mentioned, they were number 2 in the recruitment. They have players on their own locker room who know him very well and have known him for a long time. If Texas is shying off of it, it's not because of talent, right? That would be the clear indicator, or they feel pretty good about where they are in that room right now and don't want to upset that. There's a lot of variables that they know a lot more than we know about that situation.
Yeah, they can't. And I'm not saying that the guys in the room don't have a lot of upside and don't have talent, but you can't feel good about what's returning in the room if AD Mitchell's leaving, if Xavier Worthy's leaving, and Jordan Whittington. Right. So you all have unproven commodities in that room you're depending on, and you'd be going off just faith that those guys are going to be able to replace that production, that productivity, those targets that CJ's talking about. So it would be irresponsible not to at least have the conversations, not to inquire about Evan Stewart, considering what you need at wide receiver and considering his status in the transfer portal, and you have a history with him. Yeah, and you can vet him in a number of ways. You got access to vet him through players who know him personally. We know through the recruiting process, they've already talked to coaches and friends and family and that kind of thing. I think that Sark and the coaches, if they're not pursuing it at all, I think that would be irresponsible, and I think they will. Now, whether he's the right fit, that's up to Coach Sark. That's up to the wide receiver coach. That's up to all the other coaches to decide, who are recruiting him, decide if he's the right fit. I think there are times where you make exceptions or you take risks with certain players if they're not necessarily the perfect fit, but you can overlook some of the incompatibility, if you will, because, hey, man, we need a player at this position, or the player's talent, or both, right, is so tremendous. And I think this may be one of those situations. This may be one of them situations where Sark decides, man, I'm rolling the dice. If it's not a perfect fit, if he doesn't check all the boxes that we want in terms of him being the right fit for us, I might roll the dice on it. And honestly, I could see it. He's done it before, but he did it early, as CJ mentioned, with Isaiah Hall and Jalil Biscuit. He did it early, and so he knows that it can go wrong. But he's also did it with AD Mitchell. He knows it can go right. Now, he wasn't a risk with AD Mitchell. He probably did more betting. AD Mitchell wanted to come home, so the motivation was a little bit different. He had a baby here, and he wanted to be here closer to that, and that was part of the motivation. So maybe that, for Sark, that was enough to know that he was going to have the right mindset and the right attitude coming back to play for Texas. So I don't know the young man, Evan Stewart. I've heard nothing but good things, but I don't know the recruitment from, Sark's perspective and the coaches, and how it ended and why it didn't go Texas' way. That could be, the reason why we're seeing them reluctant, or at least a report stating that Texas is not necessarily the leader in the clubhouse, or not overly enthusiastic about going after Evan Stewart. I think you got to do it. Not in terms of get him, but you have to pursue him. I think that'd be irresponsible not to.
Last thing before we get to some new questions and a couple other topics here on our Tuesday Longhorn live stream. It's Recruiting Eve. Got Christmas Eve coming here with the Christmas tree behind me. We got Recruiting Eve. But guys, is there a chance? Because I've seen some mentions that maybe one of these four, one of the pass catchers we assume is moving on won't. Is there any chance that any of the four guys we're talking about, I would say JT Sanders, AD Mitchell, or X-Worthy doesn't leave? The one that would jump out would be JT Sanders, that maybe he could return and play another year for Texas. Any chance of that?
Yeah.
Maybe that's why they're not as concerned about finding another wide receiver.
In the NIL world that we live in now, that being the law of the land, yes. Because you can always offer a bag, right, of NIL, NIL deals, and can entice guys to come back to school. So that is part of it. I think Xavier Worthy's gone. That could be it. And obviously Jay Witt's he's out of eligibility. I think there's a chance, maybe slim, that you can keep AD Mitchell around, but very slim, because a lot of mock drafts got him going really high in the first 2 rounds as a wide receiver. And I think maybe with JT Sanders, because maybe he won't be the top tight end off the board, but if he's not the top tight end, he's going to be the second or third tight end drafted potentially. I think it's a very slim, minuscule chance those guys come back. I think you, as a coach, you need to plan for the worst. And the worst case scenario will be all those guys are leaving. You build your roster based on that, that mentality. Because if you don't and expect those guys to come back and then they don't come back, then your SOL and all your resources potentially in the portal have already been exhausted.
CJ,
yeah, I think on top of that, the one guy I could really make the argument for is Jatavian Sanders. And that's really because you come into the season with the expectations to be a number 2, a top 1, top 2 wide or tight end in the entire country. And, I know he dealt with some injuries, some nagging little injuries with the ankle and throughout the season. It happens. It's football. But, statistically and production-wise, I don't think this was the season he was anticipating. It was just a step or a hair better than where he was in 2022. And you're looking at it where, you're not a finalist for the Mackey Award. There's only 3 games where you were over 50 yards receiving on the season. There's room for improvement. There's room to boost that stock from where you could be, a bottom second round, early third round guy to being that number 1 guy in the portal. Again, I think there's room for that blocking to improve on both sides, pass pro and in the run game. But again, if you're looking at it from a perspective of a player, and you're getting these day 2 grades, it's hard to come back to school. It's hard to say, why pass up the opportunity to fulfill my dream, to walk into an NFL locker room, suit up on Sundays, and still be, compensated at a point where you would be at Texas, more so, in fact. So I understand the argument. I see it both ways. If there's one guy, that would be my argument to be Jatavian Sanders would be that guy to come back. So we'll see. Obviously, these next, game, parentheses with the S, those will play pretty big role as well. And I think Quinn also falls in that category as well. He's probably leaning towards returning, but the last 2 weeks, he's been lighting the world on fire. It's hard to not say, if he puts up 2 more showings like that, a team won't take him, or at least, have the conversations of putting him back in that first round conversation.
Yeah. Well, look, if UT wins the national title and they beat Washington and Quinn has a great game and then Alabama or Michigan, it's going to, I've been around here when Vince Young did the same thing. I promise you, going into the Rose Bowl of 2004 into 5 or 5 into 6, we didn't think he was going off to the NFL. And he was Superman in the Big 12 championship game, then Superman in the game against USC. And the next thing you know, he's into the draft and goes 3rd overall. So things can change pretty quickly as this goes. And what is true on December 19th, it could change by January the 8th or 9th. That is true. Hey, tonight's live stream brought to you by Energy Texas. Energy Texas is for Texans by Texans. It's when Energy Texas becomes your energy provider, you're dealing with and calling on people in the state of Texas, not back east, not overseas. They're Texans. They're proud to be from the greatest state in the union, prouder to be fighting for the little guy against big power. That's what it's about, Energy Texas. You see the number there, 855. Put that back up there, Matthew. So I can make sure 855-461-1129, energytexas.com. It's Energy Texas, Texas electricity done right. All right. So if you're just tuning in to our On Texas Football Tuesday live stream brought to you by Energy Texas, we mentioned that Bobby Burton was with us earlier. Trey Moore, the portal transfer prospect from UTSA, has not made a decision. Could happen in the next 24 hours, or as Bobby said, maybe not. He's visited Alabama. He's visited Texas. We'll see on that. Also, there's the conversation surrounding anybody that could flip. I know, CJ, you're pretty confident about that maybe some good news could be coming for Texas for Tyanthony Smith tomorrow at 6:30. But let me ask y'all both of this. Tomorrow, Rod and I will be on the radio and on hornfm.com at 6 a.m. And I know On Texas Football will be on at 7 and Rod and I are going to be a part of it in the afternoon. And CJ, you'll be there. When the DocuSigns or the faxes start coming in, the emails, what are your favorite few prospects in this class? We know Colin Simmons, Ryan Wingo, Brandon Baker, left tackle, now Xavier Filsaime. These are the 5 stars. But are there a couple guys that are players that are going to sign tomorrow that you're most intrigued by, guys? Big picture for this Texas program when we start talking about them tomorrow. Who are the guys you're most excited about, CJ?
Yeah, I guess under the radar, and Bobby and I talked about this earlier this afternoon, but a guy that really jumps out to me is Santana Wilson out of Arizona. In this star-studded defensive back class, I think he really is a gem or a diamond in the rough. He comes from a NFL pedigree where his father played 12 years in the league. Follow that up with some roles in the front office as well. He's been around football his entire life, much like Arch Manning, and you talk about how cerebral he is in terms of football knowledge. That's what Santana Wilson is, and he comes in with great athleticism, great arm length as well. There's a reason why he was taken so early in this class when Texas was still after Kobe Black, still in the mix for a guy like Corian Gibson as well and Wardell Mack. So Texas to take him, Terry Joseph to take him so early on gives me all the I guess, confirmation that I need that, there's a lot of optimism about what he brings to the table. And obviously you can't knock a guy with NFL pedigree, and really just the film jumps out too. So Rod, you got anybody on your side?
I got a couple of them, man. Alex January, I think, is one of those guys. He's just underrated. You brought this up to CJ, and I've heard some other people talk about it. He gets overshadowed just because he's on the same defensive line as Colin Simmons. So you kind of miss him because Colin Simmons, as he should, really kind of takes up a lot of the space. But Alex January is a hell of a player. And I think he's really underrated on defensive line, and he'll be obviously working with one of the best D-line coaches in the country in Bo Davis. I like him. I also like Daniel Cruz, who's projected to be a center and didn't play center most of his high school career, and his coaches kind of to help him out, and he's just such a fantastic offensive line prospect. I believe he's played every position on the O-line. And we talked to him, and center was the only position he hadn't played, but he's playing center now, or at least he did this past season, and he's projected to be a center. That's how high level this guy is as an offensive line prospect, and he's nasty. He's got some nasty in him, man. He plays football in a way that would make Casey Studdard proud. All right, he did. He just plays with a streak of nasty that I really like about him. He's some fun. It's rare that I say it's fun to watch an old lineman's film. Fun to watch Daniel Cruz's film. Go watch it. It's fun. You don't say that about old linemen, but you have a lot of fun watching him. So I like him too. And honestly, I don't know how much it'll matter because we've talked about the DB, so I'm not going to go DB. I like Trey Owens. I like him as a quarterback, man. He won Offensive Player of the Year in H-Town. That's hard to do. I'm from H-Town, man. There's a lot of good talent down there. Offensive Player of the Year. He's got some of that it quality about him too. We talked to him, E. You heard, he's got some swagger. Yeah, and he's, I think at quarterback, you got to have some swagger. I always say swagger is confidence to spare. I got enough to sprinkle on you in case you ain't got enough. That's what guys like VY have. You got to have that at quarterback. He's got plenty of it. They upset Katie this year, which is, once again, trust me, hard to do in H-Town. Got to have a damn good quarterback to do that. And I love he's got great touch on the football on his passes. He's got a great deep ball. We know Sark loves the deep ball. And I think also he's got a really, really strong arm. You just never really see it because he's really good at gauging the velo, putting exactly the amount of velocity on the football that he needs. That's what's so great about his touch. So I think he's an underrated prospect. I like Trey Owens. I'm a big fan of his. I know it don't matter much with Arch Manning there. I get it, guys. All right. I understand that. And Quinn coming back. I'm just saying I like the young man's game.
I like that too. Yeah. Back when I was growing up in Cypress, Rod, to get from Cypress to Katy was a pain in the butt. You had to drive farm roads. Now you get on the Grand Tollway and just whip on out there. Be there in like 10 minutes. But yes, but I'll tell you about Trey Owens. He's a real good player. Look, Sark evaluates quarterbacks. He and AJ Milwee, they know what they're looking for. Sark has said, he's looking for accuracy. He wants competitiveness. To your point, the swag thing. He wants a guy that really competes.
Leadership.
And that's where leadership. That's where Trey Owens excels. That's how you beat Katy, right, in a playoff game. That's how you win Player of the Year in Houston, a big city like that, because he's not Arch Manning or whatever as far as the big picture, as far as hype, but he can play the position, and I like that. The Sark will go from recruiting Quinn Ewers and Arch to a guy like Trey Owens, who some people had a 3-star. But there's something they see in him that they like a lot, and it's arm strength, as you said, it's accuracy, and it's that grit, it's that toughness, it's that part of the game that you can't coach. And you keep talking about that, Rod, with me on our show in the mornings. They're looking for traits you can't coach, right? There's things they can coach once you get here, but there's elite traits, and I can't coach that. I can't coach the grit, the toughness, the will to win. Those are the kind of things. And coverage for a safety or a defensive back or speed. You're looking for those traits, and we can coach the rest of it.
Yep, I think you're starting to see that show up more and more. You just brought it up with the quarter. I didn't even think about that with Trey Owens, but you're right about that. Sark says the two immeasurables he's looking for a quarterback are leadership and competitiveness. Trey Owens got that in spades. I think the quarterbacks that he's got in that room right now, they have most of those qualities. And even the leadership thing, right? That's something that Quinn had to work on. So he's not, totally rigid on the stuff that he wants. He understands, like, hey, I'll bring this kid in and we can work on some of his leadership skills. Quinn had to work on becoming a vocal leader and a better leader out there. And I think now he is. We see him in the way he carries himself, right? And his body language is a little bit better. Sarkis talked to him about that kind of stuff. Like, yeah, man, you're the quarterback. Your body language got to be better out there. And you can't be too nonchalant. I'm going to need you to go. So I think he's learned those things. And I think even with a guy like Travis, you can teach that. But what you cannot teach, and I think Sark knows, is accuracy. The kid's accurate, right? Even Mike Lee, the late great Mike Lee said, I'd rather take a baseball shortstop, all right, who was accurate, rather than take a quarterback with a big arm who wasn't accurate. All right, give me the shortstop who can turn and make an accurate throw over the guy who can throw it 75 yards, all right, but can't hit a guy on a slant route accurately, because you can't teach accuracy. Mike Lee said it for years. I can't teach that, man. You either got that or you don't. And he's one of those guys. He's got that. He's also got quick hands. Sark loves quick hands in his quarterback. Why? The RPO game, right? The sleight of hand, the RPO game, the mesh point. To manipulate that successfully, you need quarterback with the quick hands. Also, I'm going to have to throw from strange launch points with the RPO game. Maybe there's a rush in my face. Maybe it's a different window. Whoa, quick. Got to get rid of the football. You need quick hands to do it. So and Trey Owens has that. So you're just right about that. In every position I'm seeing that, whether it be speed or coverage, we're starting to see those coaches realize, man, I can't coach everything. And by the way, that's humility as a coach. As humility, and also knowing, being self-aware. I can coach these things I can't coach. So that means you need, and I think also they're realizing, this goes back to the culture. And Sark said it, I like guys from teams that have great cultures and programs that have great culture. That's why he's loving that DFW pipeline, right? Because they got a lot of great football programs with great culture. What those great football programs will do for you, they'll weed out bad football character. They weed it out. You ain't going to be able to play at Westlake with bad football character. Can't play at Katy like that with bad football character. You ain't going to make it at Duncanville with bad football character, man. They'll weed it out, or they will transform your mediocre football character into elite football character. That's what programs like that do. And that's something else you might say, I ain't got to coach that. I don't need to develop that. I can go recruit that from a guy at Duncanville. I can recruit that from a guy at a high-level football program. That's, I think they like that kind of. That's why Taft Daddy is out there. They like Taft Daddy because he's Simon Sound. And Taft Daddy talked about the coaches like the fact that I came from a championship program. I know what it looks like. I know the lazy step of bad practice looks like, and that ain't it. Got some good football programs, know that kind of stuff. So you can tell it's little things, man. But you're starting to see Sark he's starting to really, really, I think, perfect what his blueprint looks like. And slowly but surely we're starting to see him figure it out, whether it be at every position on defense, but the things that he wants to perfect his culture. Uh-oh. How's Quintel? Oh, you're muted, E. There you go. Oh.
I was still not.
Still muted.
Oh, there it is. Sorry about that. I touched the button on my microphone. Hello, y'all. CJ, any thoughts on the types they're looking for? Hey, and let me ask you this on that. The four, there is it 3 or 4 now commitments for the 2025 class that have already come in. I noted today on Twitter, and I got a lot of response from it, that they're going into the SEC, and the Longhorns have commitments for the 2025 class from Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. Kind of almost, I don't want to say scripted, but like sending a message that we're coming into the SEC. We're going to recruit Texas, but our first 3 commitments are a quarterback from Alabama, a tight end from Georgia, and a defensive tackle from Florida. Let's send a message a little bit, Sark. CJ, what are your thoughts on those 3 guys who have committed here in the last couple of days? Well, KJ Lacey had already been committed, but 2 more over the last 2 days.
No, I mean, I think it's sending a message 100%. It's kind of one of those, we're here now, but it's also, the result of playing good football on the field. You're able to step outside your state boundaries now. You're able to look at guys that probably might not consider your program if you're in a down season and saying, hey, you know what? We got something special building right here. We're about to enter the best conference in all of football. And have you ever seen Austin? Have you seen the opportunities marketing-wise and NIL-wise? We've talked about it before, but it is so hard right now to negatively recruit Texas. Yep. It is so hard because of what they're able to do on the field combined with what's around them. And so I think it's interesting, and it's no mistake that Texas has been tremendous at finding guys out of state. In the 2023 or 2024 cycle, this year there's 22 kids committed. Only 12 are from the state of Texas.
Wow.
There's 10 other guys that are committed from other states outside of Texas, and I think that is going to be a continual trend. And I think this is something that the best schools in the country are able to do this. You look at Ohio State being able to poach down into Texas. Clemson's done it time and time again. And then we don't even need to bring up Georgia and Alabama and how wide of a net that they cast every year. Texas being able to do this is just a testament to how I guess the national perspective has changed about the program. And I think it's very encouraging. I mean, the kid today, I'm not sure if y'all have seen this film, but Brandon Brown, that is some of the most exciting.
You watched his tape today.
That was some of the most exciting defensive line film I've seen from a junior since I've started covering recruiting.
Wow.
I've never seen so many bodies being flung several yards by a kid that is not even through with his junior season. That was very impressive. There's a reason why Bo Davis took him immediately and deemed him a take without even him stepping foot on campus for a visit. It's impressive. If you have not seen Brandon Brown's film, please go check it out, because the fourth play, his first play, I think, is him just palming a one-handed screen and taking it to the crib. And
wow.
then everything after that is him just flinging kids, pounding a quarterback. He's the real deal. So it is a testament to Texas on the field. It's a testament to the coaching staff finding guys early. And it's a statement that from the Texas side of things to say, hey, we're here. Y'all be ready.
Yeah, we're coming into your turf, Rod. We're coming.
But if you look,
I think CJ said something really interesting. It's hard to negatively recruit against Texas right now. Negative recruiting is a big deal. It has been forever to down talk. And even if you're making things up, there's not much to say bad about Texas right now, Rod, to these young guys.
I totally agree. I agree. I brought that up yesterday, that it's just tough, right? I mean, the sales pitch for Texas, is always about how great the academic institution is. It's always about now the resources, NIL, the facilities are always great. They couldn't sell championship competition, and they couldn't sell development in the NFL. This year, they'll be able to sell development in the NFL. They'll have 7, 8 guys drafted. They'll be able to sell that championship competition because they're in the Final Four. I mean, they've been getting top 5 recruiting classes, guys, without being able to sell that. Right? You had other programs negatively recruiting against Texas. They hadn't been able to sell, hey, we compete for championships and we develop NFL talent. We remember a couple of years ago, Garrett Wilson coming out and straight up saying, I'm not going to Texas because great offensive players go there and they disappear because they're underdeveloped, and Texas, they just kind of known for that. That's their stigma. That was the reputation for Texas like 7, 8 years ago, not that long ago. And now they have totally tried to shift that narrative. So that's what CJ's talking about. It's making the job really easy for all the recruiters. You got great recruiters now, but now they had to work much harder prior to this success that you've had and achievement you've had this season, winning a Big 12 title, and now about to have, 7, 8 guys drafted into the NFL. Now think about how easy that sales pitch is going to be. And I think that's why you're starting to see the momentum. I love that quote from Xavier Phillips to me today. It might be my favorite quote from any of the recruits that have come on so far. And he was being asked about, why he chose Texas. And it's great. He basically said players from Texas want to go to Texas. The players that were born in the state of Texas, he said, they want to go to Texas. And basically they were waiting on Texas to get good, essentially. That's what he was saying. Like, no, they want Texas. They love Texas. Just Texas wasn't good enough. Here's the quote. They are going to get all the top guys in Texas. Kids in Texas want to go play for UT, and that's why I chose them. Guys, it's strange to say that now because, like I said, Garrett Wilson, you had guys who had played high school football in Texas who were kind of saying the opposite and doing the opposite. El Makuba did the opposite, left the city of Austin to go to Clemson. Why? Because they were developing talent and they were competing for championships. Because even though I'm 43 years old, listen, the dreams and aspirations of 17-year-old football players ain't changed that much. They want to go to the league. They want to play for championships. They want to play with other great players. Now I'm sure the NIL bag is a part of that too. But it's still the same thing. And I need a coach and a program that can guarantee me, they can put me in the best position to accomplish those goals. And right now, Texas, they can do that. At least they can sell that. So I think that's a big part. Now you can go all over the country. Now he's telling you you're going to take over Texas again, the state. But now, as E just mentioned, you're already going to the hottest pocket, the most fertile recruiting grounds now in the country, SEC country, and plucking some of the top recruits. And it's smart because, listen, Texas is great, but Texas is huge. Texas is huge. The state of Texas is huge, all right? And the truth is, trying to get all over this state to find all the talent is impossible. So you're sticking with pockets of fertile recruiting grounds, right? That's DFW, that's H-Town, Central Texas, that's your hood, right? Maybe you'll go to Beast, Texas a little bit down that corridor, but that's what Texas now. Texas ain't recruiting the state no more. They're recruiting DFW because DFW, in terms of metro areas, produces more NFL draftable prospects than any other metro area in the country other than Atlanta. And Houston's also in the top 5. So they recruit DFW, they recruit Houston, and they're going to recruit Central Texas. That's about it. Now you can afford to divide up your resources and go, hey, man, let's go to Louisiana. Let's go to Georgia. Let's go to Florida. And you look at per capita year after year, 2023, states that's produced the most NFL players per capita, Mississippi number 2, Georgia number 4, Louisiana number 5. In 2021, Louisiana number 1, Georgia number 3, Florida number 4. In 2020, Louisiana number 2, Mississippi number 3, Bama number 4, Georgia number 5. SEC country, baby. That's where you go to get the best talent per capita. Texas, it's hard to get per capita talent because it's so much damn space. But you go to some of them pockets, CJ, right along that corridor in SEC country right there, Louisiana, Mississippi. That's where you'll find some of your best talent. Now Texas starting to pluck that.
Yeah, Rob, to your point, I mean, Texas has always been recruiting well. Now they're doing it nationally. Now they're doing it in these, hot pocket areas where, there's all sorts of, NFL rich talent. And on top of that, they're doing it in the trenches. And I think that was something that Texas couldn't do. It was not too long ago where the highest rated recruit in 10 years said, I don't want to play football anymore. It's music for me. It's crazy. The leaps and bounds that this program has taken, obviously, and it's taken guys like DJ Campbell, Kelvin Banks, the 7 guys that came in on that 2022 class to really set the standard and elevate what was in front of them. Because nothing drives a player to get better than knowing his replacement is unpacking his bags in Sand Jack right now and ready to unseat him come the first practice of spring. Right. So that's something that's very encouraging. And in the defensive line specifically, you look at where Texas is getting some of these guys. Obviously, Alex January at Duncanville is, a very fine prospect, but he's dipping his toes back into Louisiana with Melvin Hills. He's heading down to Florida, beating out Miami, Florida State, and Florida for a 2025 kid that's soon enough to be one of the top players in the country. Texas trench recruiting. Yeah. Is the biggest storyline since Sarkisian has taken over because it's elevated this program to where it's wanted to be and not where it's been.
It's a great point, CJ. Totally agree.
Good stuff, guys. All right, tonight's live stream brought to you by Energy Texas. By Energy Texas is for Texans by Texans. Whenever you call or talk to anybody as a provider, you're talking to someone in the state of Texas, not back east, not overseas. They're Texans, proud to be from the greatest state in the union, prouder to be fighting for the little guy against big power on a Tuesday night. And guys, good stuff right there. A lot of momentum for the Longhorns. Mojo out in Odessa Permian. They call it Mojo. Longhorns have a ton of it, and it should be a good day tomorrow, guys, when the commitments start coming in. And CJ, let me revisit real quick, and then we'll take the final live chats tonight, super chats. But you feel really good about Anthony Smith tomorrow night. It feels like the Jasper product, the linebacker who's committed to Texas A&M, but was on campus this weekend. Sounds like you feel pretty good about where this stands for Texas big picture. Won't come till 6:30 tomorrow night. I know on Texas football we'll have live coverage of that, but you're feeling pretty good about where that stands.
Yeah, I do feel good about Anthony Smith. Obviously, this has been one that Texas has monitored as of late very closely. It's an easy pitch, DeMarvion Overshown, Jalen Ford, and now look at what Anthony Hill's doing as well. You can step in, you can be a productive guy right from the get-go, and Texas is going to need a guy to step in and and really be that number one guy in the class. There's not another linebacker in this Texas class right now, and that's something that has been pitched to Ty Anthony Smith. He's been told that, hey, if we take a linebacker, it's only going to be you, and that's something that is weighing heavily on his mind. A decision will come down around 6:15, 6:30 tomorrow night. Again, I've said it for about a week now. I feel very comfortable with where Texas is sitting right now. And then the other one I'm keeping a close eye on right now is Dominic McKinley, the 5-star defensive lineman from Louisiana, currently committed to Texas A&M. I'm told that it's unlikely that he signs at Texas A&M tomorrow. If he signs at all, the school I've been told to keep a close eye on is Texas. But I do think it is likely that it pushes out towards February, and that will really be that one solution on the defensive line that Texas has been monitoring. Obviously, Alex Foster visited this past weekend, and Texas is keeping a close eye on De'Aylon Evans out of Pine Tree out in East Texas as well. So 3 very talented prospects right there. We'll see just how the dominoes, the cookies crumble, follow tomorrow. So should be a good day, and I'm expecting at least one bit of good news.
Nice.
All right, guys. Matthew, any other super chats we need to get through and answer some questions? We appreciate doing it. How's Quinn's health? Any doubt that Quinn's fully recovered at this point, guys?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, especially with all the time in between now and the bowl game. I expect him to be as close to fully recovered as you can get, no doubt.
Yeah. And that, combined, basically a month off with how he looked against Texas Tech and Oklahoma State, I have very little doubt that, there's nothing bothering him at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Lane. Rod, we've heard you talk about knee injuries with wide receivers. But Gilbo didn't play a ton this year or look like he did last year. How do you think it's going into next year? Jalen Gilbo, that star position, he was kind of flashed as a freshman, and then injuries have kind of derailed him. He's a real good player, though.
Yeah, no, listen, Austin Jordan and Jalen Gilbo, I think both of those guys, are going to be able to given a chance to compete for the nickel spot. I do think they want to see what those guys have. They're bringing in Andrew Makuma as the insurance policy. He'll come in as the, I think, projected starter at nickel for them. I don't know if they trusted enough of what they saw from the young guys. And I don't know if those young guys even played enough. They rotated a lot of guys in secondary. They did not rotate at nickel that as much as they did at safety or as much as they did at corner, because I think they knew that Jahdae Barron was kind of that stabilizing force there. So I like Gilbo. I like him a little bit better than I like Austin Jordan there. I'm still not sure either one of those guys is ready for the responsibility and burden of nickel. I think, Justin, it's the toughest position to play in the back seven and honestly in modern college football. I think because you have to do so many things, right? You got to cover in zone, man. You got the toughest coverage assignment if you're covering the slot wide receiver most of the time too, because teams want to find matchup advantages in there. You got to come down and play the run, be a force defender, take on linemen, take on tight ends. You got to blitz. You just got so much you got to do at that position, and not a lot of guys can handle all of that. Jahdae Barron was spectacular this season. Go look at the lineage of that nickelback position, guys. Usually that guy, if you can play nickel position at Texas at a reasonably high level, you probably have a Sunday skill set. That's the history of that position. And I'm not sure if that's Jalen Gilbo and Austin Jordan just yet. We know it's Makuba.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Matt Miller, the NFL draft scout from ESPN, said he's talked to scouts who have Makuba as a top 100 player right now.
Wow.
Like already a top 100 guy who would like to improve that, kind of like A.D. Mitchell last year. How much of a loss is Derek Williams not being able to play in the first half? Thank you, Colin, for the super chat. Yeah, that's big, Rod. You've broken the film on Michael Penix. It's real big. We talked about it in real time when it happened in the Big 12 title game. There wasn't much drama as far as the game goes, but we all said, "Oh, geez,
yeah,
that's not good."
What a bad
no,
target.
it's not good. Yeah, it's a problem because he's your best coverage safety, right? So out of your safeties, the best coverage guy you got in the safety, and Washington has 3 NFL caliber wide receivers. It would have been ideal that when they in your safety ends up matched up on one of those guys, which formationally, conceptually, that's Kalen DeBoer. He's a great coach. He's going to try to do that. You would like that safety to be Derek Williams, at least one of those guys. It won't be. And all your other safeties, they're good players, but they're liabilities in coverage. And they're going to be trying the entire first half to get their NFL caliber wide receivers matched up on your safeties. That's going to be the entire game plan the first half, I guarantee you.
Yeah. Well said. Because and look today, congratulations to Kalen DeBoer. AP named Kalen DeBoer the National Coach of the Year today. So yeah, this is a high level matchup, CJ. I know we'll be talking about it in the next week as we get closer. We're now 13 days out, but gosh, I mean, what a matchup. Two high level offensive minds, both AP Coach of the Year candidates, two high level quarterbacks, high level offenses. I mean, an unbelievable game. I'll get your thoughts on that in a minute. But let's see. Evan Stewart, elite guy, 100% sure he's succeeded at UT. This warrants a conversation about whether he wants to transfer from rivals. Thoughts? That's the conversation of the night, guys. And we keep having it over and over. Evan Stewart, I mean, we don't know what's happening in conversations behind the scenes. We're speculating. Rod, you've said it. He seems like a great fit as far as the talent goes. But clearly Sark is, and the staff are big on fits and culture. I mean, who knows where this goes right now?
Yeah, I mean, some guys' talent is so exceptional, it's worth, making exceptions, right? Because they have such a great talent. He may be one of those guys, and this is not about character issues or anything with him. This is about fit. This is about whether he's compatible with Sark's culture and with what Sark wants to do. Not on the field, X's and O's wise. We're talking about football disposition, right? And whether that works. So, I think right now I'm hearing from enough people that I trust that Texas will make inquiries about it. But Texas may decide that it's not the right fit. And if it's not the right fit, they're not going to make the exception I'm talking about. That Sark's done making those exceptions, that he will not endanger the culture or endanger the fragility potentially of what he's got going. He's not going to endanger that at all.
Well, yeah, and CJ, your thoughts? I mean, it's one of those. We said earlier, and we have to be sensitive to, or at least consider to the people who tuned in middle of the live stream tonight. But there's so many guys in this Texas locker room who grew up playing with Evan Stewart. Jonte Cook's a good friend of his. There's a lot of intel there. So, and let's also say this to anyone that is unaware: Evan Stewart just entered the portal today. Mm-hmm. So, as whatever tampering issues are happening, today is the first day that Texas coaches can actually even talk to him legally, right, within the rules. So, the things we're talking about right now, several hours from when he entered the portal, could change as of tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be one of those recruitments that is going to feel as fluid as anybody else's, Roberto, back to your point, I wanted to mention, on paper, of course, it's a perfect fit. Texas is losing a lot of production, a lot of experience. Evan Stewart has that, and he has a hell of a lot of talent to be able to step in with, one of his good friends, Jonte Cook, and let's not forget him and Quinn Ewers used to throw, back in DFW when both of them were still in high school. So there is familiarity there. Obviously, there's familiarity with Steve Sarkisian and how he recruited Evan Stewart back in the day as well. So we'll see just how those conversations, those initial inquiries go, because it's going to be one of those kind of things where Texas has to, again, do its due diligence as they've done with every player that they've targeted in the portal so far to make sure, hey, if you're coming to our school, you got to understand that this is the program now. This is the culture. We're in the process of winning games now. There's no more building. It's all about executing and being a part of something that is hopefully sustained here. So that's all about it. We'll see. Again, I think this is something that we'll begin to hear a lot more about tomorrow and moving into Thursday as well. Obviously, this is a very new portal recruitment. So the updates will come, as the week progresses.
Rod, you and I have talked about it a lot. Elite teams beat elite talent individually, right? Elite teams that play as a team beat elite talent if it's individual. And I'm not saying that's Evan Stewart, but that's what Sark's trying to protect when CJ talks about that. Yep. Elite, and this is now become an elite culture that's playing for a national title. Yes, you're very good, you fit, but let's make sure you fit what we want moving forward, big picture.
If he does, bring him in.
He does. All right, guys. Hey, listen, man, been a blast tonight. Tomorrow's going to be all day. I know, Rod, you and I have the morning at 6 a.m. on hornfm.com and the Horn in Austin. And CJ, I know you're part of the coverage all day on Texas football. It's going to be kind of the double barrel. Bobby Burton will join us on our show, Rod, tomorrow morning at 6:30. And we'll talk about the very latest. And then on Texas football, There'll be 7 to 11 live stream coverage. We'll have our coverage on hornfm.com, and then from noon to Sark has a press conference 3:30 tomorrow afternoon. So they'll go noon to 4, and then on Texas Football, and you and I will be part of that as well, Rod.
Yes,
and
sir.
then tomorrow evening for the Ty Anthony Smith decision, there'll be further covered. So to say it's going to be covered is understatement. It's going to be covered. We're going to have it. You and I on the radio. CJ, thanks so much, man. That's awesome. Good stuff, man. Tell folks how they can follow you when you're providing updates tonight and all day tomorrow and whatnot.
No, absolutely. I mean, on top of being here, it's all about being on Twitter as well at CJVogel_TFB. But a lot of the coverage will be here on Texas football, and I'm excited for it. It should be a great day tomorrow with the new class signing.
All right. Well, we'll be all over it tomorrow. It's Christmas Eve.
Right.
Eve right here, guys. All right, gentlemen, good to see y'all, and good conversations tonight. Appreciate y'all. And thanks to everybody that had the super chats. I mean, gosh, we saw a $35 super chat. Thanks so much. That was awesome. So good stuff, man. Let's get everybody in bed, get rested, get ready to go tomorrow.
Good deal.
Welcome.
All right, y'all.